My name is Brian James. This is about how 10 years of my life was stolen for something as small as a joint in my pocket. 10 years, a decade, taken for something that's now legal in 24 states. But this ain't just about me. It's about a system designed to exploit people like me. And it's about countless others still trapped in that machine. It was a normal day when everything changed. I was 22 years old, driving home from work. I had a good job at a warehouse and dreams of starting my own business one day. Flashing lights came out of nowhere and my heart dropped. I wasn't speeding, I wasn't swerving, but in Louisiana, being a black man driving down the wrong road at the wrong time is all it takes. The officer said he smelled marijuana before he even got to my window. That was all he needed. The next thing I know, I was face down on the hood of my car. They found a joint in my pocket, just one. And because it was in a small baggie, they charged me with possession with intent to distribute. Intent to distribute? I didn't even have enough to share with a friend, let alone sell. But in their eyes, I was guilty. Just another black man to feed into their system. The trial was a blur. My public defender told me to plead guilty because they would make an example of me. So I did, thinking I would get probation or a short sentence. Instead, the judge threw the book at me. 10 years. 10 years for a joint. They said I was a danger to society. But what I really was fuel for Louisiana's incarceration machine. Louisiana ain't just any state when it comes to locking people up. It's the world prison capital. For over a decade, Louisiana has had the highest incarceration rate on the planet. More than Russia, more than China, more than North Korea. The state's population is about 62% white and 33% black. But behind bars, those numbers almost flip. 64% of inmates are black, despite us being the majority of the general population. That's not an accident. That's systemic racism. When I got to Angola, Louisiana's largest prison, it hit me like a brick to the face. Angola is a former slave plantation, and it still feels like one. Prisoners work the field picking cotton under a hot sun, while the armed guards are on horseback watching over us. They call it rehabilitation, but it's slavery by another name. If you refuse to work, the guards punish you. And the work did not stop in the fields. We cleaned up after the BP oil spill. We cooked meals for the state capitol. We even entertained crowds at prison rodeos where they made millions off of us. They say crime doesn't pay, but it does, just not for us. I made 4 cents an hour at Angola. 4 cents. Some days I'd even work 10, 12 hours and earn less than 50 cents. It wasn't even enough to get a bar of soap from the commissary. They say prison is supposed to rehabilitate you, but how can you rebuild your life when you're being treated like property? And then there's over-detention. Some people don't talk about it, but it happens every day in Louisiana. When you get sentenced to 10 years and you think you'll be free after 10 years, but for many of us, it doesn't work that way. Some prisoners get held past their release date, some for weeks, some for months. I met a dude who was held there 3 years past his release date. 3 years. Can you imagine being told you're free, only to sit in your cell for years longer because of paperwork issues? The truth is, it's not about paperwork, it's about money. Louisiana pays the local jails for every day they keep inmates locked up. Over-detention isn't a mistake, it's a business model. The longer they keep you, the more they profit. And the state doesn't care. This has been a problem in Louisiana for over a decade, but nothing changes. Why would it? The system is working exactly how it was designed to. When I finally got out, I was 32 years old. I walked out of those gates with nothing but clothes on my back and a head full of scars. 10 years without family, without freedom, without hope. I lost friends. I missed funerals. I missed weddings. Life moved on without me. But the hardest part was knowing for every person like me who gets out, there are 1,000 more still trapped in that system. That's why I became an activist. I realized my story wasn't unique. It was just a thread in a much larger fabric of injustice. I started sharing my story and listening to others. Stories of fathers torn from their families. Stories of mothers fighting to see their children. Stories of people working for unpaid labor while the state and corporations profit off their pain. Let's talk about what's really going on. Across the U.S., nearly 800,000 people incarcerated are forced to work. They produce over $2 billion in goods and more than $9 billion in services every year. Most of that money doesn't go to them. It goes to the state, to the corporations, to the government budgets. And Louisiana is one of the worst offenders. They fought tooth and nail to keep forced labor in their constitution. They argue it's a necessary evil. Sound familiar? That's the same argument plantation owners made 200 years ago. Even the sheriff of Caddo Parish said the quiet part out loud. He complained about losing non-dangerous inmates entitled to release because they were needed to change our oils on our cars, cook in our kitchens. That's how they see us. Not as people, but as tools, as labor to exploit. I can't change what happened to me, but I can fight so it doesn't happen to someone else. I've dedicated my life to raising awareness about mass incarceration and forced prison labor. I speak to schools, community centers, and rallies. I write letters to lawmakers. I protest. Because this system isn't broken, it's working exactly how it was intended. And that's the problem. Mass incarceration is modern day slavery. It's time we called it what it is. It's time we stop profiting from pain. It's time we demand justice from a system that values people over profit. Louisiana's prisons may have taken 10 years of my life, but they did not take my voice. And as long as I have one, I will keep speaking out. Because no one should have to go through what I did. No one. Thank you for listening to my story. Now let's make sure it doesn't become someone else's.